All right, so anything to ask? So, descriptive and analysis. All right. What else? Reification. उसमें तो फिर बात करेंगे. We'll talk about it. All right. So, look, as per this question is concerned, that degree of alienation is inversely proportional to creativity. What does it mean? I told you that Robert Blauner empirically studied where he compared. So laborers from automobile sector, those who were working in automobile, I told you what happens in automobile, they have their fixed work. They're standing at the same place, cars are coming, they're fixing the things, then car is moving, and so and so. So despite the fact that they had more income, but as there were avenues not available for creativity, they were more alienated. They were more angry at their workplace and so and so. On the contrary, handicraft, where it's all about creativity, despite the fact they were earning less, they were happy. They were less alienated. So, and when it comes to paint industry, as still there was some scope for creativity, he found, it's empirical study. When he went to these industries, he went to the laborers, he talked to them, he asked, he did the survey, and then he asked questions. And on that basis, he found that they are more alienated or less alienated. So this way he found that degree of alienation is something which is inversely proportional to the creativity. If creativity is there, if scope of creativity is there at workplace, then degree of alienation would be lesser, right? So more the SOPs means more the alienation. Like as a teacher, the classrooms are the place where we have avenues for creativity, the way we express, the way we talk, and all these kind of things. Maybe what if it was a streamlined speech I have to speak? Imagine that I have to speak that speech again and again, like parroting it. How it will be? Very alienating then. So this way, he found that creativity at workplace reduces alienation. And this is something which is now used in management also, where many of the human resource management heads, what you call HRD heads, they work on it, that how we can make workplace less alienating for our labor forces. Karl Popper said that alienation also might be the source of creativity. What he's trying to say, that whenever there are normlessness, whenever we are feeling a kind of, you can say, destitute, that is a time when we are creative also. Best of the poetries are written in jails. Best of the poetries are written in jails. Best of the essays are written in the Nazi camps. Just for information. So isn't alienating leading towards creativity? But that could be one of the ways to look at it. It's not something which can be considered to be a hard and fast rule, but it has been observed that when people are alienated, that also may be the source of creativity. So this is how we got when we say alienation leading towards creativity. As per your question is concerned, what is class in itself and class for itself and the various stages that we are going to discuss further. You asked about that, what exactly is reification. When it comes to reification, I told you that what is fetishism? Fetishism simply says there is something which was inanimate, which was non-living. You treat it as if it is living, as if it got mystic power. So this shirt I purchased, and I purchased it in some rupees, and then maybe look what happened, how it works, how this fetishism and superstitions work. So I purchased this shirt, I put it in my almirah, and way back was trying to impress somebody, had tried everything and this was not working. I wore this shirt, and somebody told me that you're looking good today. Suddenly this shirt became what? As if it got mystic power. It was just another shirt. I gave this mystic power to it. That's what the philosophy of all, you can say, superstitions and placebo, whatever you call in psychology, they call it placebo also. So now what happened? Next time when something important is there, I will wear this shirt, as if it got mystic power. What I did reification of this object. When this object, which was purchased by me once, would turn to be source of what is called mystic power, which can help me. In fact, this is what exactly happens in religion. So this is how reification, many anthropologists, and George Lucas is one who popularized this term reification, found that this is something which happens across the societies. This is our natural tendency, that we identify mystic power with things. It's just a coincidence that it was this shirt. It would have been any shirt, then that was going to be important. So we look coincidences as a pattern, and that's why we give mystic power to it. So this is how we got, in fact, this is a reverse also. इसीलिए superstitions को जो psychologists treat करते हैं, तो they do this. If they found that someone is getting paranoid with these things, अब ये shirt गायब हो जाए तो I will be paranoid. I will be paranoid. It's a very famous case in psychology, whether you're knowing it or not. One of the greatest lawyer of barrister of all time, he had a habit of rolling his shirt button, and somehow the opponent realized it. And it was his most important day, and that button was missing. He lost the case. Became almost paranoid, where is that button? Otherwise I will die. And then treatment was done, and in the therapy, what they do? They deliberately ask them to do something which they find is mystic to them. End of the day, they found another button for them. It was not button this time, it was cufflin. That's it. But baat wahi pahunch gayi. You have not treated the fellow, you have just changed the subject. We have this tendency, we all have this tendency. Fetishism is and reification are synonymous that way. He used the term reification. He is talking about psychological tendency. That's what the term reification, but they're synonymous. Commodity fetishism is, or whether you call it commodity fetishism or whether you call it commodity reification, baat ek hi hui. So reification or fetishism are something synonymous to each other. Right. So that's how we got when we talk about these things. Now, what was your question, sir? Descriptive and analytical sense. I told you when it comes to class, according to Marx, class referred to a group of people having similar interest, and almost similar control on modes of production. This is class, and this class can be viewed in two ways: analytical sense and descriptive sense. When we say analytical sense, it simply means that we are looking at just two classes irrespective of what quantity they have. That is how, let's say, I and the owner of vision, we are have and have nots, irrespective of whatever quantity I'm having. Rickshaw puller and maybe the owner of that rickshaw is something, again, have and have nots, irrespective of quantity. That is what is analytical sense. What is descriptive sense? I will be different class, rickshaw puller will be different class, owners will be different class, and so and so. So एनालिटिकल सेंस में क्या करेंगे आप? सिर्फ दो क्लास देख रहे हो, हैव और हैव नॉट्स. डिस्क्रिप्टिव सेंस में किसके पास सबसे ज्यादा, उससे कम कौन, उससे कम कौन, उससे कम कौन, उससे कम कौन. राइट. अगर एक लेमैन टर्म में, लेट जस्ट टू गिव एन एग्जांपल, डिस्क्रिप्टिव सेंस में आप देखोगे हु गॉट 90%, हु गॉट 80%, हु गॉट 70%, एंड एनालिटिकल सेंस में हु गॉट पास्ड, हु गॉट फेल्ड, फुल स्टॉप. That is something to weigh at, to look at that who is superior, who is inferior, who is richer than other, and so that's how descriptive sense. He was not interested in descriptive sense much. His analysis was more confined to analytical sense. He acknowledged descriptive sense. Why it is important to say? Because sometimes people think that as if Marx was ignorant to it, okay, there were no intermediary class and all. He was aware of it, and that's why he talked about 6 classes in French and 8 in German. He talked about that. But then even he was least bothered about that part. He said they can be loosely viewed into two: those who passed, those who failed, those who are owner, those who are non-owner, that kind of. Obviously, he did not use the term middle class per se. That was a latter thing. But yes, those who are top and those who are low, rest will be middle. Logically speaking, that's how the term middle class can be used. Fine. Yes. But let me tell you one more thing. The literal meaning of bourgeois is middle only, because it was between land and serf. That's how the term emerged. But उतना दूर आपको जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. Just I'm telling कि मुझे पता है. Yes. If you had the idea of value, if you got the idea of value, if you got the idea of benefit, then it is something which will be exchange product. If it is something like you made something and you made sweet and you thought circle bhi le chalte hain, in that case use value to you because you like कि सर को भी खिला देते हैं थोड़ा, पता नहीं कभी मिठाई खाई कि नहीं खाई. That is something which will be the use value, right? So that remains a use value. But when you want to do it ताकि number मिल जाए, exchange value. Now there is trade involved. Trade involved. This is exchange value. That's how the use value and the exchange value, right? However, one more thing I would like to say, though, because you might be reading here and there. Yesterday, somebody asked about that, commodity money, commodity exchange thing. And after the class, we had that discussion. She wanted to say something else also, which was not finalized. So let me say a little about that too. So, CMC is in exchange value, commodity, money, commodity. And nowadays it is what? Going one step further. Money, commodity, money. So end of the day now ultimate objective is money. How to maximize money. हर आदमी क्या परेशान है कि कितना ज़्यादा पैसा हो जाए. That's why I told you, it was asked to Warren Buffett, how much money suffice to someone, and his answer was, little more than what one have. So this is how it is. Everyone is chasing money. They don't know what they will do with this money, but they want it. अब आपको क्या लगता है, मुकेश अंबानी को पैसा कमाना किस लिए चाहिए? पैसा कमाना कोई जरूरत तो है नहीं उनकी. He is enjoying the way you are enjoying your Temple Run score. जैसे आप टेम्पल रन में खुश हो जाते हो ना कि हाँ मैंने इतना स्कोर बना लिया, या कैंडी क्रश में इतना स्कोर बना लिया. And people, yes, if you just delete their Candy Crush, they may go angry on you. You have deleted my entire empire. I made it that way. The same Mukesh Ambani is doing. Same these people are doing. For them, money making is just a process now. They're enjoying that process. उनको पैसे की जरूरत नहीं है. They're just enjoying the process. कि हाँ इतना आज और इतना बना हो good. आज इतना और ऐड हुआ, आज इतने zero और ऐड हुए. And this is how they're enjoying that process. This is where money has become ultimate objective. We have forgotten it was just a medium. That's why I love that line in that novel I read, that money is overrated a bit. इतनी भी जरूरत है नहीं जितना हमने मान लिया है. हाँ ना हो तो बहुत खतरनाक है. That's why there's a theory used by Amar Sen. Maybe if time comes or somewhere we'll talk about in poverty. Amar Sen used this theory, what is called diminishing marginal utility of money, while talking about his poverty approach, and that is used in HDI. When we calculate HDI, we use this theory, diminishing marginal utility of money. Money ना हो तो बहुत मुश्किल होता, no doubt. But एक point के बाद it doesn't have any objective to serve. Only you feel good about it. That's how. That I got this much money, I got this much of money, I got this. That's why people go insane. Somebody sleeping on it. Somebody is doing all the kind of nuisance for it. But that's how they're just enjoying the process. So this is how we got, when we say, yes, Honey, you're right that Honey Singh is the name. Sorry, don't take it wrong way, because sometimes I have to be a bit careful. And I must be wondering why he says that way. So, was nice name, Honey Singh. So, all right. So yes, it's reification responsible for, reification is responsible for what you can say commodity fetishism. So commodity fetishism is because of that. Fine. Is there a higher than, if there is a higher, there is a lower, it is dialectic, but the automatic evolution of the idea of middle class from higher and lower class, no, it's not that way. Obviously, it was dialectic idea between lord and serf. Because of that, this middle class of bourgeoisies emerged. It's a dialectic idea of bourgeoisies and proletariats. That's how some new classes may emerge, and so on and so forth. Fine. What else? Yes, ma'am. Because what is alienation? When you don't know, you feel sense of distrenchment, you don't know what's the purpose and all these kind of things. So Zeman is taking more a psychological outlook of it. That when there are no norms, you don't know what to do, where to go. In that case, what you will do? That's something which leads to alienation further. So when there are no norms, let's say, one very good example is the fashion world itself. Fashion world is a classical example of normlessness. Now think of a model started in early 20s and all the glamour and all the showbiz, and after 30s nobody is even asking her. A kind of normlessness. Kya kare? Very alienating. That's why, most of them end up, unfortunately, most of them end up in suicides, drug addiction, and these kind of things. A few may marry rich one. That's a different thing. But most of them. So it is everywhere, not only just fashion world. Even many a time if you see that, normlessness, because you don't know what to do. You don't have any reference. And in that case, it is alienating. So he's taking alienation away from the labor. And what is alienation? When you are feeling lost, detached from yourself. And normlessness also leads to that. Ki mujhe pata hi nahi kya karna hai ab. I don't know what to do. That leads to what is called alienation according to Zeman. So normlessness also may lead to alienation, says Zeman. Making sense? Yes. This we'll do little later when we'll talk about patriarchy and sexual division of labor. I know this question is there, but this question is a kind of combination of 9 topic and Karl Marx. When we're talking about rise of patriarchy, that what is patriarchy? In fact, patriarchy itself is gender inequality and patriarchy are directly related. Wherever there is no, you can say patriarchy, you will see that gender equality is there. So patriarchy, the rise of patriarchy and the rise of capitalism, they are having direct correlations. We'll talk about it. There is topic, in 9 topic called patriarchy and sexual division of labor. In that, we'll understand that how patriarchy resulted into the rise of capitalism. Because patriarchy, all these things are the product of what? They are product of the idea of private property. The idea of private property. So once we got the idea of private property, then only patriarchy came. And what is patriarchy? What are the dimensions of patriarchy? What are 6? Sylvia Volvi is a big name when it comes to patriarchy. She said 6 things in the patriarchy or 6 features of patriarchy. So what is this and how it related to capitalism? Fine. Dual consciousness was the term popularized by Gramsci, which says that you are giving them confused explanations. So I told you that example that, let's say, NGOs are doing what? I gave that example also that when I realized that my wife might retaliate, what I did, I created a dual consciousness. If Marx was there, he would have said, history repeats itself, first as tragedy, then as farce. Ab isko samjhenge kaise? This is farce. I hope I'm not hurting any religious sentiment, but this is where even they don't know what they are doing. They're equally inebriated. Farce bolte hain swang ko, nautanki jo samjhte ho? That's how. So this is how. I'm not, again, if you want to worship, do worship it. मेरे ख्याल से इसमें सबसे ज़्यादा नुकसान किसी को हो तो उनके अपने ईयर ड्रम्स को हो रहा होगा. And yes, respecting religion is fine. इसका अपना फायदा भी ऐसा नहीं है. This has its own advantage also. It brings us together. Remember, functionalists will say this way, कि इसकी वजह से जब अब ये आ रहा है तो आपके मन में भी थोड़ा गॉड का नाम याद आ रहा है, तो that is functionalist approach. तो अभी हम फिलहाल कौन से मोड में है? कॉन्फ्लिक्ट वाले मोड में. तुम वैसे देख रहे हैं. Once we'll come to the functionalist mode, तुम उसको वैसे देखेंगे. किसकी वजह से वी आर फीलिंग यूनाइटेड, थोड़ा सा वी गेट रीजुनेटेड, वी गेट दोस काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. वो फंक्शनल स्टैंड होगा, विच डरखीम विल से कि द रिलीजन चाहिए क्यों, व्हाई इट्स नीडेड. सो दिस वे मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूं ताकि ऐसा ना लगे कि आप भी सिर्फ एक ही साइड देखो कॉइन का. यू शुड हैव दिस हैबिट टू सी ऑल द साइड्स एंड यू शुड नो विच साइड टू टॉक व्हेन. So this is how when we got this idea that when it comes to this idea of how Marxism's entire notion is something which revolves around these things only, that how they are creating a kind of false consciousness. So what is false consciousness? When they're giving wrong explanations. What is dual consciousness? Dual consciousness is my cholesterol high or is it some pressure is not favorable? अच्छा, मुझे लगा कि उम्र में ये सब भी होता ना, तो वो भी देखना होता है कि कहीं वो वेरिएबल्स तो काम नहीं कर रहे. ऑलराइट. सो व्हेन इट कम्स टू दिस idea of dual consciousness, what is dual consciousness? If you cannot convince them, confuse them. And what they do with state apparatuses do what? So I give the example that when I realized that she's very angry, I provided some consolation prize. And the exploitation continues. Same state does. Same state does. That when they think that you're very angry, they provide some kind of concessions to you. And you're happy with that. You're happy with that. So that is where we got when we say dual consciousness. Then there is one thing called happy consciousness, which Marcuse talked about, that you are too busy in your work and leisure. Both are alienating, not thinking. Critical thinking is gone. Where is the critical thinking now? Everyone is busy, and whatever is being said to you, accept it. The criticality, the critical thinking is gone. So that is something which is also the product of happy consciousness. And sometimes we also use a term called zero consciousness. That's why media these days don't tell you just the news. It shapes your mind too. It shapes your mind too. कि आप कैसे सोचो, आपके सोचने पे कंट्रोल आ गया. The way you are thinking is also, this is what is called Goblin truth. एक ही झूठ को 100 बार बोलिए सच लगने लगता है, और ज्यादा तेज बोलिए और सच लगेगा. That's how it is. So this is how, we got this idea that how dual consciousness, false consciousness, happy consciousness, zero consciousness. And the answer to all this is, according to Marx, true consciousness. To understand things scientifically. That is true consciousness. Fine? Yes, what else? In that you will say that what exactly dialectic materialism is and how this idea of class struggle was manifested in that. I have not done that part yet. आज हम उसको करेंगे. So once we'll talk about that, how class in itself was converted in class for itself across the modes of production. So what happened in the primitive, what happened in ancient, what happened in feudal, what happened in capitalist. That is how you have to identify that every time. That's why all the history hitherto is the history of class conflict. So every time the thesis antithesis resulted into this class formation, class for itself, and the moment they became class for itself, they retaliated, and that's how the next modes of production came. So you have to mix both, that how modes of production and the class struggle. We'll write it today, that will be more clearer then, right? Social change simply means how society was changing. This is what class struggle is, all the history. That's why we had given the heading, class struggle or Marxian theory of social change. Well, that how society has changed over the period of time. Yes. How is alienation contradicting Marx's dialectic approach? Look, why don't you hold this question? Let me finish one more thing called Durkheim's anomy. There we'll talk about it, that where dialectic materialism is not visible in the notion of alienation and what Durkheim has to say on anomy. Then it will be more clearer, right? In fact, similar question has been asked also when you do Durkheim, that Durkheim's anomy and Marx's alienation. तो वहां पे कुछ चीजें ज्यादा clear होंगी. Fine. Yes. What else? Fine. So just to have a quick look in as per Karl Marx is concerned, हम बात कर रहे थे फिलहाल. Let's do this and then we'll do the entire revision again. In Karl Marx, we were talking about class struggle. And in that I told you, when it comes to class struggle, according to Marx, class is group of people having similar interest. So there are two things. One is called similar interest. These are the key words. And second is similar control on modes of production. Now, in that case, it could be analytical, it could be descriptive. Marx is more interested in analytical when we got have and have nots. So have and have nots are there. According to him, when class in itself is becoming class for itself, it prepares the ground for social change. And this class in itself is converting in class for itself. There are, you can say, 4 stages of it. What are these 4 stages? First is what you call pauperization, immiseration, homogenization and polarization. And if you want to give it fanciful names, pauperization thesis, imagization thesis, high homogenization thesis, and polarization thesis. आपको ये भी लिखा मिल जाएगा. That's one of the same thing. Now, when it comes to pauperization, what it says, harder they work, poorer they get. Why so? Because of increasing inequalities. So when the labor is working, as labor is not getting the fair chunk of the profit, what is happening? That inequalities are increasing. That's why I gave the example of that pair of shoes. If I'm making one pair of shoe, the difference is 350 rupees. And if I'm making 100, it will be 350 multiplied by 100. So harder they work, poorer they get. And poorer they get, when I'm saying, again, it is not important how much of money you have. Maybe their wages are increasing a bit. But end of the day, if you see, the gap is very high. The gap is very high. The purchasing power of this fellow will be relatively lesser. And this way we got what is harder they work, poorer they get. Now, because of this pauperization, what will happen? They will have what is called, although there might be slight increase in income, but overall their work conditions, their, what you can say, life standards, all these things will deteriorate. And the gap will increase. Inequality will be increasing. What is immiseration? Immiseration is, or you can say, theory of misery, where what is happening now, they are, as they are getting poorer, it is now reflected in their social life also. It is reflected in their social life. It is reflected into their sociological statuses, impoverished life standards. Look, those who are residing in slum, it's not only about money. In slum, if you see that the kind of life they are having is something which has its own social cost. So you might have noticed, slums we got collective euphoria very often. So collective euphoria or collective what is called hallucination is very common in slums. So pata nahi whether you're knowing it or not, that monkey man. Monkey man was a concept in the slums of Delhi. It has been observed. So what happened is, monkey man, that people are reporting that someone is scratching their face, looks like a monkey. And where thankfully we got one CCTV footage from that hotel of Barakhamba Road, and we came to know they were actually scratching their own face just to get sympathies from others, so that they can overcome to these problems. वो खुद ही अपना face scratch कर रहे थे unknowingly. This is called collective hallucination. It happens. So monkey man खुद ही scratch. वैसे भी when people there's a very famous saying, sympathy is poor substitution of love. इसलिए कुछ लोग बड़ा victim card play करते हैं. अरे भाई सब क्या बताऊं, बहुत तकलीफ. So वो इसलिए क्योंकि they want your attention actually. And that's why I often say, what is being said is not important. Why has been said is important. वो समझना बहुत जरूरी होता है कि why has been said. So sympathy is a poor substitution of love. वो हर एक आदमी अभी आपने पीछे, you might have heard in slums of Delhi and neighboring areas, we had heard कि वो कोई आके चुटिया काट के ले जा रहा है. These things actually happen, or those kind of things, ki teeth logged and tongue twisted and all that. Mataji aage, pitaji aage, bitches broom kind of thing. It's very common in the villages. What is happening? It's not just economic conditions getting deteriorated. Even miseries has come in social conditions, socio-psychological statuses, and not only that. इसी बात को आगे और एक बढ़ा रहे हैं. One fellow is called structural Marxist, Althusser. He said state is also using it. Policing is what? So policing works for whom more? Who is more scared of police? We people probably, the common man, the have-not class is more scared of the police. Are not they using these kind of things? State apparatuses, policing and so and so. So this way, when it comes to this idea, आप एक notice भेज के देखिए किसी politician को और किसी एक आम आदमी को, probably that common man may commit suicide out of fear. Politician के लिए अच्छा ठीक है, एक और आ गया, कोई बात नहीं, रखो. He knows I have battery of lawyers and I can deal with it. So this way, we got this idea of immiseration, which results into continuous degradation of the life standards. So where we got impoverished life, further impoverishment in the socio-political conditions. This is where Marx is using a term. Listen to me carefully for this, that economic class actually is working as ruling class also. It makes that necessary arrangement through which the known owners are scared, don't dare to raise voices. They don't dare to raise voices. वो पूरी कोशिश करते हैं कि with the help of religion, with the help of education, other institutions. So what is education doing? What kind of stories you are being told, what kind of things you are being told in classrooms and all these kind of things. So look, be it your education system, be it your religion, be it other social institutions, what they are doing, they are working as agent of capitalists so that the laborers are duped, so that they don't raise their voices. So that they don't raise their voices, they are somehow accepting it. That's why भाई क्या कर सकते हैं, ऊपर वाले की मर्जी है. ऊपर वाले की मर्जी नहीं है, ये कैपिटलिस्ट की मर्जी थी. That is what he said. And that's why people and all miseries are being explained what? As if God testing you. All miseries has been explained that no, in education system it has been told these things will polish you further. I don't want to be polished, please. Give me my share, full stop. So this is how your education system, your religion, your other sources of socialization, your cinema, all these things have told you this. Have told you this, that how this social life is justifiable. यहाँ पे हो क्या रहा है, एक hidden curriculum है. Pire Bourdieu, I don't know whether you can recall Pire Bourdieu or not. Pire Bourdieu used the term cultural capital and says there is a hidden curriculum जो आपको बताया तो नहीं जरा पर exist करता है. There is a hidden curriculum. और उसकी वजह से क्या हो रहा है, we are accepting it. We are accepting it. So economic class is trying level best with the help of media, with the help of, you can say, political agents, education, and these kind of things. That's the reason why you got that statement. कि शुरुआत हुई as a tragedy, but then they tested the blood and used it deliberately. So something which started as tragedy became farce. Became farce now. अब उन्हें मालूम है कि इनको डराना है तो क्या करना है, जैसे मुझे मालूम है आपको डराना है तो क्या करना है. I know this thing. आपको डराना है तो क्या करना होगा. There are, in fact, कभी पढ़िएगा, पॉपुलर होना चाहते हैं, there is one thing called tipping theory. बस उन 4-5 लोगों को जान जाइए जो आपकी बात को बढ़ा चढ़ा के कह सकते हैं, and job is done. कभी पढ़िएगा, it's a very famous theory called tipping theory. जैसे say for example, I use this theory honestly though I should not say this way. मैं गाँव बहुत कम जा पाता हूँ, बट मेरे गाँव में जो सबसे नकारे लोग हैं, those who are fit for nothing as per their definition, those are fit for nothing, doing nothing, nobody is giving them respect. When I go home at my village, I give my key to them first. Now you will drive the car, you will be there, you will take care of everything, and I deliberately spend money on them. The advantage is, before any official entering in my village, I'll get the phone here. कि चाचा आज लेखपाल आया हुआ है. And that's why they get surprised कि तुम्हें पूरी information कैसे रहती है, तुम तो वहां बैठे हुए हो. I'm just using what capitalists are doing. And you know what? They exaggerate also. Arey, chacha, if I spend 500 rupees, they will say 5,000, 50,000. That's why farce. Rag Darbari. You know Rag Darbari? They glorify your things. So I hope this is not reaching to them at least. क्योंकि अगर पहुंच गई तो फिर नेक्स्ट स्टेज आ जाएगा, पोलराइजेशन. अच्छा, चाचा ने अब तक बेवकूफ बनाया था मुझे, मैं तो सोचता प्यार कर रहे थे. This is where this polarization will come. Subjective perception of the objective reality. Subjective perception of the objective reality. And the moment they will understand all these things, what is actually happening to them, they will come together, they will retaliate. They will come together and they will retaliate. So imagination is something which is preparing the ground. That's why he believed कि जो capitalism कर रहा है is something, because of that only they will be destroyed. So this, when their social conditions are getting precarious, when they are continuous in poverty and destitute, what will happen? Somewhere things are getting amounted also. they are getting amounted, and whenever they will realize, okay, we belong to one class because of these miseries, and it may come from any source. It could be a leadership, it could be a situation, it could be a condition. That's why yesterday I told you about Libya thing. Libya की पूरी कहानी हुई किस वजह से? सिर्फ एक छोटी सी बात. People were unhappy, they were dying because food was not there, and that Gaddafi's son called his father. He was in London that time. He called his father and said, I want a golden Rolex and a Rolls Royce. There was some disturbance in the cable, and he received a golden Rolls Royce at his university. Now, when this news came via YouTube, that was good enough to retaliate. Now, this was just the trigger. People are unhappy, homogenization has already happened, it just became a trigger. So any incidents may be trigger, any leadership, like Gandhi was a trigger actually. Gandhi was a trigger because people were unhappy, miseries were there. Gandhi just said ki why these miseries are. Subjective perception people got. So he was a bit lucky also. Sorry, Gandhi ji was a bit lucky. अगर मतलब ऐसा कहीं उसको interpret कर रहे हो आप. ये सब status apparatus की बात. I think we should be respecting him more than calling him Gandhi ji. So this way we got, when we talk about this idea of how this imagination takes place, and then we got homogenization, then polarization. In homogenization, they will start going to their respective places. This is where Marx also said the intermediate class in the descriptive sense will go to corresponding pole. Either they will go to the ownership pole, or whether they come down to non-ownership pole. बात उसकी ऐसा नहीं है. अब आप देखो, आपने अगर हिस्ट्री पढ़ी है, you know, none of the landlords, none of the princely states ever participated in the freedom struggle. कभी participate नहीं किया. None of them, एक single भी नहीं. They'd been very loyal to the Britishers, the ownership class. They joined the club. They joined the club. I mean, in Mountbatten, before giving that those kind of Dickey Bird plan and all these things, he first talked to these princely states. He himself is one. Have not they come together? Irrespective of that, maybe in descriptive sense they are different. So they came together. So that's how koi nahi, balki just for information, Devendranath Tagore wrote a letter of apology to the British after 1857 mutiny. We are not involved in this. So, you know, you might be doing Tattva Bodhani and that kind of thing. It was official apology later given in that, in Bengali. So if you see this way, it's fine. I'm not saying ki, that's how Marx believed that these intermediary class, they will go to their corresponding classes. And that's how we got two hostile camps. And this is something which will prepare the ground for revolution. Now, every time in the history this has happened. So what happened in the primitive communist societies? When those people who have the idea of private property, as you know, that was the thesis antithesis, having idea of private property, retaliation started. Now they started having more private property, the idea of masters and slave come. And then we got class, slaves becoming class for itself. That's why history, if you watch carefully, many of the slaves have retaliated. So slaves became what is called class for itself. And remember what Roman Empire did to them. That was tragedy, what Roman Empire did to them. And then all of them are following the same thing. The various dictators are using different things. Sometimes somebody is using a national identity, sometimes somebody is using a religious identity, sometimes somebody is using any other kind of ideology, any other kind of system, but the bottom line remains the same. Bottom line remains the same, that this way they made sure that they could exploit the other. And that's how when further pauperization and homogenization takes place. इसलिए मैंने आपसे कल भी कहा था कि हमेशा there will be two. One will be talking about this ideologies and these kind of things, and the other will be the one who will be responsible for pauperization. That's why the economic class and the political class, they are overlapping. They are overlapping. And not only that, इससे भी interesting बात आपको बताऊं. They are not only overlapping, they make a close group also. इंडिया में जितनी पॉलिटिकल फैमिलीज हैं, उनके 70% के दामाद मीन्स सन इन लॉ, ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हैं. It's not just coincidence. They make a close group. So they are bureaucrats. Sons are politicians. Son-in-laws are bureaucrats. Sons can't be bureaucrat because of the examination probably that easily. But sons are politicians. Son-in-laws are bureaucrat, and that's how they make a close caucus. और हम और आप डर रहे हैं. मैं रिलीजन का नाम लेने से डर रहा हूं. You, everyone knows it. I have accepted it. मुझे डर नहीं है कहने में कि हाँ मुझे डर लग रहा है. But I can tell you, from the same political party, this political party's one leader's son-in-law is in Congress, and our retired bureaucrat is there. वो पूरी मुझे याददाश्त ठीक है, and I can take the whole thing, if you know, in one channel, that how they are, and that's how they are. We all are. So this is what Wright Mills call a power elite group, that they make one close group. They have the information. Not only that, ये मैं जिस फैमिली की बात कर रहा हूं, जो बीजेपी से लीडर है, सन इन लॉ वहां पर है, और उनकी एक बहुत क्लोज रिलेटिव बहुत बड़ी मीडिया जर्नलिस्ट भी हैं. अब शायद अंदाजा लगना शुरू हो गया आपको, अभी कश्मीर वाले मुद्दे में थोड़ा सामने आई थी. अब ये सब कुछ बताता है कि हाउ क्लोज अप्रेंटिसेस आर मेड. दिस इज व्हाट राइट मिल्स थ्योरी इज. सो व्हाट दे डू, दिस वे दे मेक श्योर. So same happened with this in the masters. So masters, religious clergy head, they came together, nobles and all these, and that's how they started. So slaves retaliated. Now we got lords and serf. When serf became class for itself, French Revolution happened. Revolutions in Germany and civil war in Europe happened, and then we got capitalist and you can say non-bourgeoisies or bourgeoisies and proletariats. I hope now you're getting the point, how social change is taking place. So every phase, what is happening, the non-ownership class, once is becoming class for itself, prepares the ground for conflict. Ownership class is always class for itself because they have to work as a ruling class. Making sense? Now, he said this continues from one mode of production to another. But अब यहाँ पे मार्क्स ने वो लाइन भी बोली है, history repeats itself, but are we learning from it? He said this time proletariats should learn. Praxis आ गया कि नहीं? Should learn कि why all these things are happening. So what you should do, you should have equal control on the resources, on the factors of production. There should not be idea of surplus, and if there is no idea of surplus, all these things will not be required. मुझे अगर आपको डराना नहीं है तो जरूरत क्या है? If I have not to make you scared, why there is need of boogeyman? You know, boogeyman वो बचपन में वो भूत ऐसा होता है, ये वो, फिर बड़ा हुआ तो पुलिस वाले आ जाएंगे, ये करेंगे, you know, ऐसा करोगे तो जेल भेज दिए जाओगे. These are boogeymans. You know, so they are having their own latest guns, their latest weapons, latest technologies. So they are. So they have, कोई कह रहा मंत्र से तुमको गायब कर देंगे, कोई कहता है गोली से गायब कर देंगे, कोई कहता है तोप से उड़ा देंगे. These boogeymen, why they are needed? Because they want surplus. So no boogeymen required then. So this way, when it comes to the idea that there will be socialism and there will be communism, so he believed that this time when the revolution will happen, the non-ownership class will understand the miseries are why, and finally there will be a classless society. Now, as he said this, the praxis point, obviously after him, many of the people have used it. Like I told you already, Lenin was one who used this concept in Russia. And Lenin believed that yes, class struggle should be there. And he united not only the industrial laborers, but also the agrarian laborers. Because in Russia that time we had jars. Jars were landlords. And he said that agrarian laborers also should come together. And this time there should be equal redistribution of the resources. That's why when Marx symbol is hammer, Lenin symbol became sickle. Lenin symbol became sickle, and that's how hammer and sickle. So hammer became Marx symbol, Lenin symbol was sickle. And Lenin believed that now agrarian labor should come together and should destroy all these things. And that is how we got the Russian Revolution 1917. That how jars were outthrown, and then we got what is called the socialist empire in USSR. What do you call, that time USSR, now Russia. But Lenin also believed one thing. He believed that this notion of surplus is still in our minds, and that's why what we should do, we should have a strong state. This is very different from Marx. He said there should be a strong state so that no one takes advantage of having surplus again. And that's why you might have read this in your economic classes here and there, that Lenin was one who said कि few things should be always in control of state. He said 4 things called commanding heights of economy, that is steel, railway, so steel, railway, electricity and coal. He said ये 4 हमेशा state के पास होने चाहिए, because they determine how economic activities are going to be. So they determine the economic infrastructure. ये हमेशा state के पास होना चाहिए. So when railway is being privatized, it is ideological also. It is not just a matter of economic activity. That's why it has been talked that way, because that will be the last nail in the coffin. The rest of the things has been already colonized. We have privatized it already. And that's why, I don't want to call it colonized, don't think that way. And I'm not calling them neo-colonials. So that's how we got when we talk about this idea of how Lenin believed that there should be another kind of approach where we should accept that there should be equal distribution, but state should protect it. But इससे एक step आगे, मैंने पहले भी आपको बताया, इससे एक step आगे गए Mao. That's why Lenin and Nehru were inspired by each other. Even Nehru had a similar understanding. That's why Nehru also believed that nationalization of the things, everything should be nationalized. State should have control. And Nehru was very skeptic about capitalist. And let me clarify this to many of you sitting here. मैंने इकोनॉमिक्स के लोगों के मुंह से भी गलती सुनी है. नेहरू वॉज अगेंस्ट कैपिटलिज्म, नॉट अगेंस्ट इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन. दोनों में फर्क है. Nehru was not against industrialization. He was against capitalism. He was wanted to promote industrialization, but with the help of state. However, Mao Zedong went one step further. And according to Mao Zedong, this idea of surplus will remain in the minds unless and until, remember here what I told you, they are using state apparatuses of education. Mao believed that we need cultural revolution. What is cultural revolution? That पूरा thought process ही बदलना पड़ेगा. किसने बताया आपको कि surplus is needed? Who said this? Through education, through society and all these kind of things. That's why you are not interested in today's food only. You want to save for futures and maybe for future generations too. ये किसने कहा आपसे? You got it from education system. So Mao believed that this education system should change. These cultural symbols should change. These kind of explanation should change. And he also believed, Mao believed कि it will be possible only when we are creating enough of fear. That's why he believed violence. और बहुत सारे लोग इस बात को मानने लगे कि हाँ, सोशलाइजेशन बदलना चाहिए. In India also, आज जाके जरा कुली का पोस्टर देखिएगा. I insist. Amitabh Bachchan in a red scarf, having sickle and hammer in the hands. कुछ चल रहा है. पता नहीं you have noticed it or not. Even they started believing, let's have a new kind of cultural revolution. Cinema of 1970s, 80s tried to encash that idea. Okay, that's why hero was always someone, a labor, maybe a peasant, and the villains were rich. That's how 70s, 60s cinema, the stories of that time. So it was because that impression that we need to rechange the socialization process. हमें socialization process को बदलना होगा. But unfortunately, there is no single example on this earth where socialism turned to be a true socialism anywhere. And that's why Harari was right, that by end of, you can say, 20th century, across the globe, this romanticism of socialism started fading away. And the story began with Margaret Thatcher. I don't know whether knowing Margaret Thatcher or not. Margaret Thatcher was there in UK. And she was one who started privatization of all nationalized things in UK. And after that, many other countries. And in 1989, they came together, which is popularly called as Washington Consensus, where it was realized that time has come for liberalization and too much of state intervention is not good. And that's how we have seen that something which was considered as socialism started fading away by, you can say, 1990s. In 21st century, apparently it looked that that capitalism has come back again, and in a way your socialist ideas became Marxist ideas became bankrupt. What is bankrupt? That they could not fulfill their dues, and people, that's why, not trusting them. जो उन्होंने promises किए थे कहीं दिखे नहीं. In fact, Ramchandra Guha used a term for India, that in India we got crony socialism. They got a face, a facade of what is called socialism, but they were capitalist. They were capitalists themselves. So this is how we got this idea of crony socialism that has come. And by 21st century, at many places we started believing that Marxism is coming to an end. Is it really the case? इस पे थोड़ी सी और बात करेंगे, इससे पहले थोड़ा लिख लेते हैं इसको, so that it's streamlined and they'll move further. Huh? Karl Marx was not against technology, but he was of the opinion that it should be something which should be for collective purpose. He was against the surplus, not against the technology. No, this is what the idea. That's where Nehru is getting closer to Bernard Shaw, called Fabian socialism. There's one thing called, and that believes this way, कि if you are having industrialization, understand this point also. His point is valid. क्योंकि उस समय आप जरा 1950s के इंडिया में जाइए, was it possible to feed everyone without industrialization? So industrialization will fulfill our need. That's why it should be promoted, so that everyone having decent standards of life, but surplus should not be there. So they were against surplus. Now, you can give heading that, what was the last thing we wrote? Class in itself. We have written class in descriptive sense, class in analytical sense, and all these things. Next, class in descriptive sense and class in analytical sense. Acha, we have to write. Okay, you have given class in itself and class for itself. You can write in this. In analytical sense, in analytical sense, Marx highlighted two antagonistic classes of have and have nots. मुझे लगता है हम लिख चुके थे इसको, have and have nots. And for him, whenever have not classes, and for him, whenever have not classes are aware of their class position, class struggle takes place. From the next paragraph, to explain this, he used the term class in itself and class for itself. Class in itself and class for itself. Class in itself and class for itself. Class in itself refer to that situation where they belong to one class, but unaware of their class positions. Unaware of their class positions. On the other hand, On the other hand, class 4 itself refer to, on the other hand, class 4 itself refer to that situation or that condition. Class 4 itself refer to that condition where they are aware of their class position, where they are aware of their class position and collectively fighting for its interests. Collectively fighting for slash pursuing for, दोनों लिख सकते हैं, fighting for और pursuing, pursue, no? Pursuing its interests, its interests. Its interest. This transformation happens. This transformation means what? Class in itself to class 4 itself. This transformation happens through. Now this is keyword that should be reflected whenever you're talking about class in itself and class 4 itself. This transformation happens through subjective perception of objective realities. Through subjective perception of objective realities. Objective realities. Which happens in following stages. Which happens in following stages. Which happens in following stages. First, pauperization thesis. Pauperization, Pauperization, pauperization. Z भी use कर सकते हैं, it's up to you. Both are accepted. Pauperization thesis. It refers to the condition of conditions of systematic degradation of the non-bourgeoisies or the laborers or the Sunils, जो भी लिखे सुनील लिखिएगा मत, non-bourgeoisies due to the unequal distribution of exchange values. Are you getting this point? Unequal distribution of exchange values, where harder they work, poorer they get. Harder they work, poorer they get. Harder they work, poorer they get. This pauperization is manifested in forms of poor working conditions, impoverishment of life standards, although wages may slightly increase, in bracket, although wages may slightly increase, may slightly increase. and continuous fear fear of survival, जिसको आप hand to mouth भी बोलते हो ना, continuous fear of survival. So आप सोचो, look, COVID is a very good example. COVID में क्या हुआ? Wasn't the fear of survival for them? For the rich, though, it was a long waited holiday. They said this way कि बहुत दिनों से we did not get that leisure time. It was much awaited holiday. And think of the poor, how they were moving from one place to another and what kind of problems they have faced. You know, what you might have heard in the news, etc., is just the tip of the iceberg. The situation is far more precarious than that. So, आपको क्या लग रहा है, when they are moving from one place to another place, how many places they would have been bribed, humiliated, and what not? So, all these things, वो सब है, and that's where we got, when we talk about that, how class in itself becoming pauperization is something where poorer, harder they work, poorer they get. That's how. Next is immiseration thesis. IMMISERATION. Immiseration thesis. Which advocates that impoverishments of non-bourgeoisies और proletariats जो भी लिखना चाहें, non-bourgeoisies उन सबको एक साथ ले आता है ना, impoverishment of non-bourgeoisies or proletariats is reflected not only in their economic conditions, but at the same time, in their social conditions, because the ownership class tries level best to provide necessary conditioning so that the exploitations are justified. हम उफ भी करें तो गुनाहगार हो गए, वो कत्ल भी करें तो कोई फर्क नहीं. अब वो कर क्या रहे, अगर आप देखो तो सब चीज में whatever labor is doing justified, ऐसे ही है. You are responsible for it. Caste में that justification is there, gender में that justification is there, race में that justification is there, everywhere are not the justifying it कि हाँ बस ऐसे ही है, यही सही है, this is how it is, isn't it? Nobody is questioning. So they are justifying whatever they are doing is righteous. और next time whenever anyone says कि तुम्हारे भले के लिए कर रहा हूं, be alert. The moment anyone says, मुझसे पूछेगा तो अरे मैं बच्चों की मदद करना चाहता हूँ, पैसा कमाने आया हूँ, full stop. बोल के दिखा दीजिए किसी टीचर को, I bet कि आप पैसा कमाने आए हो. The entire system get, isn't it? So अगर आपने बोला सबसे पहले आप ही निकाले जाओ क्लास से, and that is needed so that others get a lesson कि how it is. So this is how they justified. वो हर तरीके से justify करेंगे. So that's why those who are asking question, they are not good. क्योंकि वो खतरा है. If they're asking questions, someday they ask fundamental questions too. That's why asking question is more dangerous than they are asking good right question or wrong questions. Because if they're asking question, they may ask fundamental questions someday. इसलिए बचपन से ही what you are telling them. That's why family is a source of ideological conditioning device. Don't you over respect what is called discipline and obedience? Why I should be obedient? अजीब बात. जो सब look, अरे बड़ी अच्छी बेटी है उनकी, तो जहां पिताजी ने कहा वहां शादी कर ली. I think she's idiot. Dull. Not understanding it's her life. I hope ये बात घर तक ना पहुंचे, हमारे आपके बीच में ही रहे. But I'm asking you, I'm putting a question mark, isn't it? But आप कैसे उसको बोलते हो? How you say this? How you say this? कि जो है, जी मैम? अच्छा, all right. So you got swayed away, हाँ? कोई नहीं. But the point is, आप हम सब ऐसी तो बात करते हैं. That student who refutes me is perhaps the most capable. And you know what? History is a proof. Teachers are always refuted by their students, and that's how knowledge wins. It's happening from Aristotle's time. हमेशा ये हुआ कि नहीं कि टीचर की बात को स्टूडेंट्स रिफ्यूट किया है, and knowledge has won that way. But we don't appreciate such, they always have to pay the cost. वो इसलिए क्योंकि ownership class क्या कर रहा है? Is creating its own conditioning apparatuses through social. इसीलिए this is the psychology. I told you earlier also, this is psychology of abuse. आप जब किसी को abuse करते हो, हमेशा अपने females को abuse क्यों किया? उसको हम समझेंगे patriarchy में. Because this way you ensure two things, that you're every time when any male is abusing anyone, using corresponding females, actually patriarchy established in both the minds. आपको जरा अगर ध्यान से देखेंगे तो it will be visible to you. Every time it is established. That's why कुछ एक कास्ट का नाम गाली हो गया. आप सोचिए, आप मुझे गाली दें और मैं कुछ जवाब ना दे पाऊं, नाम सुनीली नाम गाली हो जाए, भगवान ना करे, और मैं कुछ जवाब ना दे पाऊं, तो you can understand the kind of dissidence I will be having and the kind of confidence you will be having. Every time when I salute you, आप में कुछ ऐड होता है, मुझ में कुछ टूटता है. Something got broken inside me and you got more confident. I am having dissident, you are having more confident, and every time you're glotting at me then. इसको देखो बेचारे, and this is the psychology. This is the psychology of abusers. Why people abuse? Why people abuse? का purpose ही होता है. Why certain names are abused? Why certain, बस करना क्या? आप उसके नाम को गाली बना दीजिए. Job is done. Rest will be taken care of. Rest of the things will be automatically taken care of. किसी को भी आपको डिफेम करना है, उसकी प्रोस्पेक्ट्स घटाने, बस एक काम करिए, उसके नाम को जोक बना दीजिए. आपके सामने बहुत सारे एग्जांपल दिखेंगे, थोड़ा नजर दौड़ाएंगे इधर उधर, क्योंकि नाम मजाक बन गए. They might be from religion, they might be from political, they might be from educational, but several places. That's the only way. And once it is done, rest of the thing will be automatically taken care of. आपको फिर और कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है. So all these things are doing what? Creating that kind. That's why this imagination thesis is very important, where they are suppressing it deliberately, because they know if we are not justifying, they may demand more. They may demand, and that's why if you ask me, I often believe the greatest thing possible is that you can disagree to others. और जिस society में, जिस system में disagreements appreciate नहीं किए गए, they will deteriorate. They had actually created a seed for destruction now. उनको दिख नहीं रहा होगा, बात अलग. That's a different thing. That's why I personally believe that when Ambedkar Sahab also said कि freedom of expression is one of the most important thing. और अगर वही चीज आप खत्म कर लीजिए कि they are too busy in their own things, not raising question, job is done. Job is done. So वो हर कोशिश करते हैं, that how it's the ideological conditioning is done. You can write further. क्या लिखा आपने? As justified. It may be with the help of education. It may be with the help of education. Maybe with the help of education, comma, religion, religion, legal systems, legal systems, and such like institutions. Such like institutions. Legal systems and such like institutions. That's why, in bracket, that's why he quoted history repeats itself. That's why he quoted history repeats itself. Initially as tragedy. Initially as tragedy. And then, as these statuses are misused, as these apparatuses are misused, ऐसा कुछ लिख सकते हैं, as these apparatuses, apparatuses are misused, these apparatuses are misused, repeats itself as farce. Repeats itself as farce. Repeat itself as farce. Fine. So this is how we got, that's why education is very dangerous weapon, trust me. How you use it, that determines so many things. So this is how we got imagination thesis. अब यहीं पे मैं चाहूँगा एक note की तरह आप लिख लीजिए that this approach of Marx was further taken in structural Marxism. This approach of Marx was further taken in structural Marxism. Structural Marxism. Popularized by Althusser. Structural Marxism. Popularized by Althusser. Althusser. बहुत सारे नाम है Althusser, Milban and all, but Althusser. Popularized by Althusser. चाहे तो Milban भी लिख सकते हैं, and Milband, Miliband, where they use the term like ideological state apparatus. Ideological state apparatus. They use the term like, it's written here, ideological state apparatuses. Ideological state apparatuses like family, schooling, religion, and repressive state apparatuses like police, court, etc. Repressive state apparatuses. Like police, courts, etc. Repressive state apparatuses. So police hai, army hai, court hai, all these are what? They are repressive by nature. While education, family, religion, these kind of things are ideological. That's how you use the term ideological conditioning device. आप इनकी मदद से क्या कर रहे हो? आपने आपको एक ideology दे दी गई that this is right. What is your entire concept of notion of right and wrong? A few people said this is right, so it's right. कुछ लोगों ने कहा ये सही है तो इसलिए सही है, दैट्स हाउ यू आर कंसिडरिंग इट. सो नोबडी इज आस्किंग कि क्यों सही है क्यों नहीं सही है. Are you asking these kind of things? You accept it the way they are saying it. So that's how we got what is called ideological state apparatuses and repressive state apparatuses. ये किसने कहा था? अल्थ्यूजर ने. ये आपको, I will use this term here and there in stratification, in marriages, in let's say power and all. So you should be at least aware of this term. They are called structural Marxist, Althusser. Now, further you can write that. This was imagination thesis. Next is homogenization. Homogenization. Homogenization thesis. और सिर्फ homogenization भी लिखेंगे. Homogenization thesis, which advocates that when inequalities are pervasive, or more, जो भी लिखना चाहें, are pervasive, then there will be homogenization among laborers. Homogenization among laborers. Which may get triggered with any immediate factor. कुछ भी हो सकता है, कोई happening होगी, which may triggered with any immediate factor, an incidence, immediate factor, which may be an incidence, a leadership, immediate factor, which may be an incidence, a leadership, and so on. जैसे फ्रेंच रिवॉल्यूशन हुआ पेरिस डे कम्यून की वजह से, सो कुछ भी हो सकता है, कोई सी हैपनिंग होगी. इनफैक्ट नक्सलबाड़ी स्टार्टेड व्हाई? बिकॉज even by default that SI got killed. When they were retaliating and SI went to stop them, SI got beheaded. That was immediate trigger. And they tested the blood probably. They realized, okay, this is possible. So it may get triggered with anything. वो कुछ भी हो सकता है. Any happening might be there, but कुछ ऐसा होगा जिससे trigger करेगा. ये homogenization will lead towards what is called polarization. The next is polarization. As an end product, all the liberals will come together. As an end product, all the liberals will come together, converting the society into two hostile camps. Of have and have nots. And the class struggle will take place. So ये जो subjective perception of objective reality वो इन phases में आएगा. Class struggle will take place, which will be violent in nature. Demanding large scale changes. अच्छा, इसके लिए एक टर्म यूज करते हैं, स्ट्रक्चरल चेंजेस. When we say structural changes means कुछ बड़ा change हो रहा हो, then we call it structural changes. Large scale changes or structural changes. Or structural changes. Structural changes. ठीक. सिर्फ अपनी समझ के लिए as a note you can write that in Marxian explanations of class struggle, in Marxian explanations of class struggle, in Marxian explanations of class struggle, the ownership class is always class for itself, and when liberals are becoming class for itself, class struggle happen, resulting in next type of modes of production. So class struggle between masters and slave resulted in class struggle between, अब आप देख लो डायलेक्टिक मेटेरियलिज्म को यहाँ जोड़ रहा है, तो class struggle between masters and slave resulted in widespread revolutions and the new modes of production of feudal type emerged. New modes of production of feudal type, feudal modes of production emerged. आप इसको चाहें तो पिक्टोग्राफी बना सकते हैं, जैसे हमने पीछे बनाया था कि प्रिमिटिव में जो थे, एंशिएंट में जो थे, मिडिवल में थे, what you call feudal, and then capitalist, and how they got class struggle each time. Further, the struggle between two resulted in new modes of production of capitalist society. But every time they fail to learn from history. Using praxis he advocated that now the laborers should learn from history, अब यहाँ पे शुड लिखूं या विल, ये बड़ा कहना मुश्किल है, क्योंकि कुछ लोग ऐसे भी लिखते हैं, अगर आप रिजर्व भी पढ़ोगे तो यहाँ साउंड करेगा एज इफ मार्क्स वाज सेइंग विल, बट ही इज प्रोबब्ली सेइंग शुड, क्योंकि एडवाइज ही कर रहा है कि रिवॉल्यूशन करो, ऐसा तो नहीं कि सो शुड लर्न फ्रॉम हिस्ट्री एंड next class struggle should be for socialist modes of production. Making sense? Should be for socialist modes of production. यही गलती कर गए, इनको यही रुक जाना चाहिए था. Socialist modes of production. And finally, a communist society. A classless, rosy society, है? Communist society. Communist society. This is where he went wrong probably. कि उन्हें कहना चाहिए था अगला कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होगा, and better if they learn the lesson. That would have been better thing. कि क्योंकि ऐसा हुआ नहीं, फिर lessons learn हुए नहीं. बात वहीं सोशलिज्म में भी वही हुआ. We got a new kind of bourgeoisies now. We got a new kind of ownership class. This time they were in white collar. You know, इसीलिए एक राइटर है आदम गोंडवी, he has written कि काजू भरी प्लेट में विस्की गिलास में उतर आया है रामराज देखो विधायक निवास में, पक्के पक्के समाजवादी हैं, तस्कर हो या डकैत, इतना असर होता है खादी के लिबास में. सो दिस इज समथिंग विच इज टॉकिंग अबाउट द इंडियाज स्टोरी. अब मार्क्सिस्ट हैं तो उसी टोन में बात करेंगे, बट ऑब्वियस इज डिस्पाइट द टोन, एटलीस्ट what he's trying to say. So in India, the new kind of ownership class is more in terms of, you can say, new political bureaucratic class. They are the one who might be getting benefited. So this way we got those who don't understand Hindi. This was one of the lines from a writer who's saying that these days, everyone is a socialist provided he wear that khadi cloth. No matter what is his background, no matter how many cases are pending on him. So all these kind of things. So this way we got, when we talk about this idea of how these phases happen, and every time we miss the lesson, so he believed that now laborers will understand it and will lead to what is called a socialist communist society. Making sense? This was his class struggle. Now you can give heading, critical evaluation. Critical evaluation. अच्छा, whenever question is asked on class struggle, तो आपका ज्यादा emphasis किस पे होगा? Defining class, how class in itself is becoming class for itself, and then giving references to modes of production. Modes of production का reference कम रहेगा कि how each time this struggle has happened. तो आप दोनों तरीके से लिख सकते हो. Either you say class and how across the societies class struggle has happened, and every time it happened because of class in itself becoming class for itself, and then explaining it. I did it other way around. I first explained what is class, then what is class in itself and class for itself, and what are the stages for class for itself, and then I said that how across the history it happened. That's why चाहे क्वेश्चन पूछें आपसे, all the history hitherto is the history of class struggle, तो भी वही लिखेंगे. Marxian theory of social change, तो भी वही लिखेंगे. हाँ, if they ask about this, how history repeats itself, then focus should be more on how we got ideological state apparatuses, how we got repressive state apparatuses, how we got Marxian idea of immiseration, and then finally how Althusser etc. had said. So this is how we got when we talk about this concept. Making sense? Now you can say critical evaluation. In this Marxian concept, you can write that Marxian concept of class struggle, Marxian concept of class struggle turned to be very popular class struggle, very popular in the Europe and many other part of the world. In the Europe and many other part of the world. In fact, अगर दादा भाई नरोजी को भी पढ़ो अगर आप, तो he has also given reference to Marx. हालांकि he did not supported him. रफ्त गुफ्तार में एक जहाँ पे मार्क्स का रेफरेंस है, that means he was not unaware of whatever was going on that time. And Dada Bhai Noroji is, again, I must say, is one of those underrated heroes in your history books. He deserves more. He might have not fought or have not thrown bombs somewhere, that's a different thing. But what he did was very important. Because he was, I'm sure you're knowing that magazine called Raft Guftar. That has changed our thought processes. So this way, he was aware of it, quoted it. But the most interesting and funny thing which I heard about Marx was uh, this fellow from I think he's from probably Kirodimal, Dr. Jha. He got a reference somewhere. इसका reference है कि Marx wrote a letter to Ghalib, their contemporary. This interested me a bit. कि अच्छा ये भी हुआ. Marx wrote a letter to Ghalib because Ghalib wrote a line कि यूं तो हमको मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, लेकिन दिल के खुश रखने को गालिब का ख्याल अच्छा है. It sounds same false consciousness. So Ghalib has written once कि I know what his truth is, but it's fine. What you're saying is fine. So that's very famous quote of Ghalib. When Marx read his poetry, he was very impressed. And he wrote a letter to Ghalib. Ki we are talking same, Ghalib never replied. I can understand that. Why should I? उनको बताया मेरा भी वही फिलॉसफी है, किस किस को सोचिए, किस किस को रोइए, आराम बड़ी चीजें मुंह ढक के सोइए, ज्यादा दिमाग क्यों लगाइए. I don't believe in corrections. That's a different thing. Sometimes Marx was a believer in correction. Ghalib was least bothered. So इसका reference है. This is very interesting कि वो लोग आपस में एक दूसरे से बात करते थे. That despite the fact कि उस समय communication channels were not that good. Now you have communication channels, but you are busy. So this is paradoxical. More the communication channels means less people are talking. So this way we got, when we say this idea, but Marx was very popular in the Europe, in various part of the world, by especially if you see 1880s and all. His idea was getting popular, and many countries were fighting on that line. They were fighting on that line, and that's the reason why UK started that Rowntree survey, which turned to be the first definition of poverty, that how many of them are actually there without basic facilities. That's how the idea of below poverty line and these things started. So this way we got, that is achievement of Marx, that people were accepting him here and there. So क्या लिखा आपने? And the other part of world, but at the same time, his theories were criticized also. His theories were criticized also. Theories were criticized also. According to Weber, according to Max Weber, Marxian concept of bipolarity means two hostile poles. Marxian concept of bipolarity. वही सुन लेते हैं थोड़ी देर. Concept of class struggle, a bit Platonic. Look, he said this, and yes, unless and until it happens, it sounds Platonic. Anything unless and until happens sounds Platonic. So it's all about, so, but yes, there's a merit in what he's saying. It's not completely, you can say, crud. There is a merit in what he's saying. Fine. This is what exactly subaltern is talking about. Because you know only the history of rich, that's the problem. There's another thing which you are missing out here, is that you know only the history of rich. You don't know the history of poor. You don't know actually from where Shudras has come. It's only the rich version we are knowing. And that's why Ambedkar believed that there should be another version of history. So Ambedkar has given his own theory in that book. In fact, Arundhati Rai wrote a book on that called The Doctor and the Saint. Doctor is here, Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar, and Saint is Gandhiji. This is obviously derogatory. In 1932, when Pune Pact happened, and Ambedkar took the back foot, okay, fine, if no separate electorate, at least give us reservations. And then in 1934, caste census happened, that you might be knowing here and there. After that, Ambedkar was invited once to speak on caste system, but the condition was put that you have to give in writings what you're going to speak. He gave his entire speech and they did not allow Ambedkar to speak. And that speech was converted in form of a book which you know, Annihilation of Caste. And there is one theory of Ambedkar, not that much discussed in your NCRTs and mainframe books, but that's called the broken man hypothesis. Broken man hypothesis. And that says, in fact, that's the reason why in Maratha, we claim Chhatrapati status again. So there's a broken man hypothesis. That's in the second paper though. So you'll maybe, if context comes and when we talk about perspectives of caste. So the broken man hypothesis says, if someone is very strong and you defeated that fellow, you will make sure that they don't dare to think again. So you will not leave any stone unturned to keep their morals low. And that's how these institutions were built. So he has given his theory called the broken man theory, broken man hypothesis. Annihilation of caste, he has talked about it. Same is the story, even there are several references here and there telling something, but they deliberately has not talked about that in history books. Because how much you know what your books and what your resources are telling. What about the hidden part? बहुत सारी चीजें जो hidden है, जिस पे तो हम बात भी नहीं कर रहे, जिन पे हम तक पहुंच नहीं है हमारी. We don't know about them. Exactly what was. And that's why whenever a new political order comes, what they want to destroy the old history. Look, they are bombing Buddha's statue in Afghanistan. Bombing. Why? Because they know someday people may ask what Buddha is doing here. So it is very natural, like the same thing, imagination and what is called state apparatuses. So we don't know that version of history. That's another factor possible. So you can write that. According to Weber, Marxian concept or Marxian notion of bipolarity seems to be unrealistic. Seems to be unrealistic. And unlike his ideas, society is getting four-folded. Society is getting four-folded in an octagonal diamond shape. Society is getting four-folded in an octagonal diamond shape. Four-folded. What are these four folds? Four-folded in octagonal diamond shape. First is big bourgeoisies. Second is what you can say white collars. Then we got petty bourgeoisies. They are those who are both owner and laborers. Petty bourgeoisies, and then you can say blue collars. Or proletariats. So that's how we got these four-fold classification. Four-fold classification is there. Society is dividing into these four folds: big bourgeoisies, white collars, petty bourgeoisies, and blue collars. And unlike Marx anticipation, and unlike Marx anticipation, unlike Marx anticipation, the middle classes are increasing in number. Middle classes are increasing in number. Middle classes are increasing in number. आई होप आई एम मेकिंग सेंस टू ऑल ऑफ यू. देखिए ये बातें अगर आपको क्लियर रहेंगी तो आगे बहुत आसान हो जाता है. दैट्स व्हाई आई एम गिविंग दैट मच ऑफ एनर्जी एंड टाइम. ये और कम में हो सकता था, आई एक्सेप्ट इट, बट वी हैव टेकन ऑलमोस्ट 4.5 क्लासेस. द रीजन बीइंग कि वंस यू हैव क्लैरिटी ऑन इट, तो आपको स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन में द सेम थिंग विल बी रिपीटेड, द सेम थिंग विल बी रिपीटेड इन सोशल चेंज, इन रिलीजन, एवरीवेयर. So once you got clarity here, those things will look like very easy cake. So this is how we got big bourgeoisies, white collars, petty bourgeoisies, and blue collars. That's how society is getting fourfolded, unlike what he thought. And society, the middle classes are expanding. So where will be that the war or crusade you're talking about? Similarly, so the next one is similarly, Ralph Dahrendorf highlighted it's not the ownership, rather authority, which is source of conflict. It's not ownership, rather authority is the source of conflict. Authority is the source of conflict. And within every ICA, whenever conflict happens due to authority, structure, whenever conflict happens due to authority structure, it is sorted within, or it is resolved within, the ICA. It is resolved within the ICA. तो ऐसा नहीं कि the entire society will be within the ICA. So that macro view of social change, is oversimplistic. So that macro view of social change is oversimplistic. However, he acknowledged that if many ICAs are failing simultaneously, then revolution may happen. क्रांति तब आ सकती है. Then revolution may happen. So that's why I deal with one problem at a time, and make sure they are not happening together. So this is how we got when we talk about this concept of ICA. Next. You can add G. It could be like in this class, we are the members. I am the order giver, you are the order taker. Her ICMA for objective, someone will give the order and someone will take the order. If I'm trying to be authoritarian, you may retaliate, but it will be sorted within. So every ICA simply means when people are coming together for a purpose. That's how imperatively coordinated association. They are coming together for a purpose. Or jab bhi they are coming together for a purpose to achieve something, some will be order giver, some will be order taker. सो मेंबर कौन होंगे, दैट डिपेंड्स आईसीए टू आईसीए. क्लासरूम में आई एम द अथॉरिटी, यू आर प्रोबली फॉलोइंग मी. So this is how we got this IC of this classroom. So if something goes wrong with me, if I'm too authoritarian, then perhaps you will retaliate. And if you retaliate, what will happen? The authority structure will change. दो तरीके से बदल सकता है. Either I will be changed or I will tone down myself. दोनों ही केस में हाँ, यू कैन से कि सोसाइटी का मिनी सैंपल है. मीन सोसाइटी इज एक्चुअली नथिंग अ बिग आईसी, अगर आप कहना चाहो उस तरह से समझने के लिहाज से. So this is how we got when we talk about Ralph Dahrendorf. He said this way. Then another explanation was given by Wright Mills. According to C. Wright Mills, C. Wright Mills की बात हमने कहाँ की? Sociological imagination में और भी कहीं. Alienation में what he said? Service industry, right? Then according to C. Wright Mills, it's not the economic class which is ruling class. It is not the economic class which is ruling class. Economic class which is ruling class. Rather, they are power elites. Power elites enjoying key positions. ये आपके कंसेप्ट 7 टॉपिक में भी है. 7th टॉपिक अगर आप देखो तो उसमें सी टॉपिक में लिखा होगा पावर एलिट्स, बी में सॉरी. सो दैट इज समथिंग व्हिच राइट मिल इज टॉकिंग. व्हाट इज हु आर पावर एलिट्स? पावर एलिट्स आर दोज व्हिच आर एंजॉयिंग की पोजीशंस. अब से फॉर एग्जांपल कोई प्रेसिडेंट है, कोई वाइस प्रेसिडेंट. सो आई एम श्योर नहीं तो वाइस प्रेसिडेंट में तो what is section 67A? section 67A क्या है? resignation of vice president. यही है यूपीएससी. मैंने आर्टिकल 67 नहीं बोला था, सेक्शन 67 बोला था. 67A article talks about that. Section 67 is different. That is in IT Act. Very good. Yeah, APSC. We want precision, not much of detailing. That's why I said, are you listening carefully? That's very important. So, अक्सर होता है. That's why I deliberately said इसके यहाँ जरूरत नहीं था. Just to bring it to your notice. कि चीजें छोड़ बहुत ध्यान से. Don't read in hurry. Take all your time. एक एक वर्ड का मतलब क्या है? So it's article, not section. But ठीक है, it's okay. No, so, but I'm happy that you are informed that what is 67A. That's why news is not important. This 67A article is important for you. कि क्या है, वाकई ऐसा होता है कि नहीं. And so what these things are, what are the provisions. क्योंकि दो बड़ी चीजें हो रही in between. I'm sure, I'm not guessing. I'm sure this time. क्योंकि वो जो impeachment है वो कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ी odd situation create कर रहा होगा. So it will come down to that sooner or later. वो जब हम धीरे धीरे समझेंगे तो विल कम डाउन देयर. क्योंकि पहली बार इम्पीचमेंट देख रहे हैं, जस्टिस वर्मा हैशटैग. सो खैर जो भी है, जैसा भी होगा वो बड़े लोग बड़ी बात है. दे आर पावर एलिट्स. They are power elites. So this is how we got when we talk about what exactly it means when we say power elites. And according to Wright Mills, power elites are those who are enjoying key positions. They say he said about America. In USA, who are these? These army officials, those big corporate houses, people, some of the politicians, they are what you call, India maybe, in India they might be bureaucrats, some key bureaucrats. In India they might be some, like पूरी country को, honestly speaking, 50 bureaucrat चलाते हैं. From PMO to finance ministry, 50 bureaucrats. There might be thousands of them, but country is run by 50, and some of them are so important so that civil services procedure rule can be amended. मैं नाम नहीं लेना चाहूंगा, सीनियर वैसे it is in a positive side, तो नाम लेने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी why to get into that? So even you have changed the rules for one fellow because we don't want to miss that fellow. He was that competent. और समझ में नहीं आता कि इनके बिना चलेगा कैसे सिस्टम. So till he has not prepared someone of the same caliber, उनको extension दिया गया. So some odd 50, and that's why I'm deviating, but just saying to you कि आप जब civil services में पहुंचोगे, you will be having two choices. Just be another bureaucrat with some more rupees in your Swiss account, that's it, and that will go in vain. Or be creative, be that formidable, so that uh, in these 50-60 they are dead honest, they're least bothered about money and these kind of things. Even honest की बड़ी जरूरत है. तो सिस्टम चलेगा कैसे? चलाने के लिए तो लोग चाहिए ना. So they have their own values. They are dead honest people. Might not be having those kind of positions, but you can't think country without them. I think that's also an achievement. तो ऐसे लोग भी हैं सिस्टम, ऐसा नहीं कि they don't exist. I'm not talking about any rare species. They do exist. और वही लोग सिस्टम चला रहे होते हैं. There are some odd 50-60. एक बार इंडियन एक्सप्रेस ने बाकायदा लिस्ट भी निकाली थी इनकी, द मोस्ट इन्फ्लुएंशियल ब्यूरोक्रेट्स, कि वो कौन लोग हैं. एंड उनकी प्रायोरिटीज अलग होती है, वो अलग अलग लोगों के अलग अलग फितूर होते हैं ना. Everyone has their own priorities. So this way we got, when we talk about this idea that actually it's authority structure. So Wright Mills says it's power elite, and power elite could be the key bureaucrats, they could be key politicians, they could be some of the important position holders. So they are what is called, maybe in India, the caste leaders also. You can't ignore caste leaders. You might be just one leader from a particular area, but you are so important so that country cannot say anything against you because you belong to a particular caste, you belong to a particular group. It happens more than often. So they are called power elites. So Wright Mills says it's not the economic class which rules, it's the power elite which rules. Power elites which rules. So क्या लिखा आपने? Enjoying key positions. So Marxian thesis. So Marxian thesis is overlooking this structural dimension. Structural dimension. But यहाँ पे I can defend Marx. Marx ने ये नहीं कहा कि there will be de jure political authorities. They will be de facto political authorities. क्योंकि ये जितने लोग आपको पावर एलिट दिख रहे हैं, ये सब उस ग्रैंड वेडिंग में थे. De facto means actual किसके पास पावर है? यस, जितने भी लोग दिख रहे हैं ये सब ग्रैंड वेडिंग, यू नो दैट अभी हाल फिलहाल में एक ग्रैंड वेडिंग हुई थी, उसमें सब थे. ये सब जितने भी पावर लीड दिख रहे हैं ये सब थे उसमें. तो हु इज पावरफुल देन? हु इज मोर पावरफुल देन? एंड दैट्स व्हाई de facto पावर किसके पास है. अगेन पावर में आई विल टेल यू, पावर कुड बी डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट. I've already told you power might be direct, indirect. So maybe they are enjoying power. They might be signing authorities. But end of the day, who is enjoying de facto power? So that is what Marx is probably trying to say. This can be defended this way. Wright Mills' explanation is this. You can write that. Next is Frank Parkin. Frank highlighted that even in socialist society, there are inequalities prevailing. And state works as ideological conditioning device. Work as ideological conditioning device. State wo kaam kar raha hai. In the name of state, you have to do all these things. That's why I said, look, Russia, Lenin's dead body has been protected. Koi nahi pooch raha, bhaiya kya kar rahe ho? Nobody is asking ki, don't you think their taxpayer should also ask to them ki kya kar rahe ho? Dead body ko protect kar rahe ho bhai, itna paisa kharch kar rahe ho. But nobody is doing. So the state has been portrayed that way. I would like to call it state fetishism. Isn't it? Kind of state fetishism. Apne state ko hi you made the next god. So this way we got, when we talk about this concept of Frank Parkin, you can read that Gerhard Lenski. Gerhard. अब देखिए कुछ, a few names you should remember. I'm giving these names. Gerhard Lenski. अभी याद नहीं भी रहेंगे तो कोई ऐसी दिक्कत नहीं. You won't be hanged. Don't worry. Gerhard Lenski. Also, ये इसलिए important है क्योंकि इन्हें socialist societies पढ़ी. Gerhard Lenski found that in socialist societies like USSR, Mexico, and these places, in socialist societies, Gerhard Lenski found that in socialist societies, it is the political class which is becoming the economic class. So उनके जो bureaucrats हैं, military heads हैं, उनके पास बहुत सारा पैसा है. Is the political class which is becoming economic class. बात घूम फिर के वहीं पहुंच रही है. Political class. So it's just opposite what Marx is saying. So वहां पे क्या हो रहा है? जिनके पास power है, इंडिया में भी तो वही है. So so that's how we got in socialist societies. It's the political class which is becoming the economic class. End of the day क्या हो रहा है? सारे उनके सबके interest क्या हैं? These interests are political, apparently. But if you go and decode it, you will see that they all are having economic interests. चाहे तो इन ब्रैकेट में लिख सकते हैं. In Indian context, Ramchandra Guha popularized the term. In Indian context, Ramchandra Guha popularized the term crony socialism for it. Popularized the term crony socialism. Crony means money oriented. Crony socialism. नहीं, crony socialism. कहने को सोशलिस्ट है लेकिन मनी ओरिएंटेड है. सो वो कहने को पॉलिटिकल पावर है बट एक्चुअली दे आर सीकिंग व्हाट? मनी. दैट्स हाउ क्रोनी सोशलिज्म. हाँ, so that time socialism was there, no doubt. In fact, nationalization of bank when happened in 1969, that time also we had the socialist ethos, no doubt. कहानी वहीं से गड़बड़ हुई है. Let me tell you, in fact, wonderfully written by Shashi Tharoor. 1970s से इंडिया का पॉलिटिकल सिनेरियो बहुत तेजी से बदला था. एंड इफ आई विल से इन वन लाइन, मुझे इतनी इफेक्टिव लाइन बहुत कम जगह पे लिखी पढ़ी मतलब पढ़ने को मिली, which can sum up the entire thing in one line. Shashi Tharoor has written in his book that, Elephant, the Tiger and the Cell Phone, that 1970 में कुछ हुआ which changed India forever. And what was that? Suddenly, loyalty became more important than meritocracy. उस समय का जो सिनेरियो था, because Indira Gandhi when came in power, Morarji Desai was supposed to be the next prime minister. After the death of Shastri ji, Morarji Desai was going to be prime minister. Indira Gandhi was nowhere in the name. And suddenly Kamraj appeared, a close meeting happened, and God knows what happened in that close meeting, and Indira Gandhi became prime minister. Kamraj became the new architect, Morarji was sidelined. And then Kamraj himself was sidelined. Kamraj was sidelined around 1968 so that he went in south and started his own political party. That's how Congress got divided into two. One became Congress I, that is Congress Indira, another became, that is Congress I you are knowing. and another was Congress Kamraj. That was the time in South, Dravid Kadgam started, and you got Annadurai, CN Annadurai, who started talking about Dravid Kadgam. You should know a little about it. It will help you to understand identity politics in paper 2 also. So अब वहां पर साउथ में हो गया था, पर दिल्ली में एक प्रॉब्लम आ गई. We were scared. What if senior bureaucrats, top-notch bureaucrats, are more loyal to them? Because most of them were Southern Indians. Most of the bureaucrats, in fact, there was a time South Bloc used to use Malayali. This much of Keralites we had in South Bloc, where Defense Ministry is. Now, this fear started something which Shashi Tharoor called suddenly loyalty became more important than meritocracy, and those who were loyal to Madam or the new king Sanjay Gandhi ji, they were given the key positions irrespective of whatever merits they have. And this is, if I'm here not because I'm a good teacher, I'm here because I'm appeasing my bosses, then I will be least bothered about you. I will be least bothered about performance. I will be more interested into what? Appeasing bosses and filling my pockets. That is where India's story got changed. It's a wonderful explanation. I obviously am not going that far, but suddenly, and that's why Rajini Kothari used a very good term, suddenly there was Sanskritization of corruption. What is Sanskritization? You will read in second paper given by M.N. Srinivas, that says something started by the upper class, upper caste, lower caste started using it, following it. Corruption was started by these top-notch bureaucrats who were given the key position, being in good book of Sanjay Gandhi ji. As they started, others joined. Others joined. That's why you might have heard that famous quote said by Joginder Singh once. Joginder Singh was head of CBI once. He said, "Ek bar, it's a very famous story. It happened. A thief stole 10 lakh rupees from a bank. The manager called police and said, a robbery has happened, a heist has happened of 20 lakh rupees. The SP reported to SSP, sir, there's a heist in bank of 50 lakh rupees. SSP reported to ADG Law and Order that, sir, there's a heist of what is called 1 crore rupees. ADG Law and Order reported to the Chief Ministers there's a heist of 5 crore rupees. Next day newspaper read, a heist in bank of 5 crore rupees. The thief was thinking, who is thief then? Who is thief then? अब इसमें thief कहेंगे किसको? 10 lakh उसको मिला 4 and 4 crore 90 lakh rupees. This is crony socialism, where what they are doing is end of the day. So Gerhard Linsky, Ramchandra Guha, they are talking about those countries which talked about socialism. What happened there? The political class became the economic class. It was the political class which eventually became the economic class, having its own things and so. So this is how we got when we talk about how these evaluations are. So कम से कम वेबर याद रखिए. वेबर हर जगह आपको मार्क्स अगेंस्ट दिखे तो वो आसान है. Weber should be easier. Then you should be writing C. Wright Mills, at least Frank Parkin and Gerhard Linsky, or thoda sa to get Indian taste also, you can say Ramchandra Guha. So these are the people who have criticized Marxian notion of class struggle. वैसे तो बहुत सारे criticism है, like somebody has shown me that Wilfredo Pareto's line कि Marxism के साथ हमेशा problem है कि आप उनको बोलो this is rat, they will say no it's mice, you will say oh, okay fine this is mice, no it's a rat. So that was said by Pareto. Pareto was a psychologist, Wilfredo Pareto. उनका अपना line of argument तो बहुत सारे लोगों ने criticize किया, और एक functionalist criticism तो है ही है everywhere. So just to finish it, you can write that. Similarly, functionalists criticized Marxian theory of class struggle to be an ignorant of functions and social order. ignorant of functions and social order. Society में functions क्या हैं? Why this happens? As if everything was negative only. But just to conclude, but irrespective of all these criticisms, all these criticisms, this class struggle provided, this class struggle means explanation of class struggle, provided explanations on conflict as driver of social change. Conflict as driver of social change. Driver of social change. Fine. So this is how we got. So I think all the 4 things are clear to you now. We talked about what is historical materialism. We talked about what is modes of production. We talked about what is alienation, and we talked about what are class struggles. अब यहाँ पे एक एडिशनल बात थोड़ी हम करेंगे, बिकॉज आई थिंक दे आर गोइंग ग्रेजुअली इन दैट डायरेक्शन, और अच्छा भी है, ऐसे ही जाना चाहिए, कि व्हाट्स इट्स रिलेवेंस इन कंटेम्प्रेरी टाइम्स. सो अगर हम से कि इज मार्क्सिज्म स्टिल रिलेवेंट इन कंटेम्प्रेरी टाइम्स, and can it be justifiable in countries like India? Yes, to some extent. अगर आप देखो, one thing which proves Marx to be right, and you know what, after Marx everyone believed in historical materialism in any humanity subjects. Now historical materialism is the base, not a historical idealism, because we all believe that yes, it's the material reality which needs to be examined, not the social reality only. तो मार्क्स का ये सबसे बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन. दैट्स व्हाई आई बिलीव मार्क्स एज ए पॉलिटिकल रिवोल्यूशनरी, यू मे डिसएग्री टू हिम, बट मार्क्स एज ए रिसर्चर, even those who are refuting Marx are using the same thing. They are also talking on the material sense only. So Marx as a researcher, when he talked about historical materialism, is still valid, and many of the analysis of the past, of the history, has been done. In fact, this is very surprising. At the same time, you got story of Ramayana here and you got story of Troy there. In fact, कई बार कुछ ऐसी चीजें होती है जिस पर लगता है कि कितना काम किया गया होगा. पता नहीं अपने मूवी को देखा भी ध्यान से, एक तो मूवी फ्लॉप थी, शायद ना ही देखा हो, तमाशा. In that there was a storyteller, and that storyteller has lost memories in the last scene when that fellow went to the storyteller की कहानी में फिर आगे क्या हुआ. I don't know whether you noticed that frame or not. That storyteller, which was acted by Piyush Mishra, I guess, he mixed the stories. He said, and the Lord Ram started from there, and then the horse entered into the Trojan. That was the time when I realized, अच्छा ये सारी कहानी एक जैसी है. If you notice, at the same time, the similar story was here in India. The similar story was there in Europe. The similar romanticism was in 17th century in India. Similar romanticism in Europe. It's not just coincidence. When the materialities are same, our thought processes are same. Our thought processes are same. And that is how even philosophy has been relooked on material interpretations. Marxist, this idea that reality should be examined not on ideas but on material concepts, that is something which is there and stands very valid. Be it Gandhi, be it Nelson Mandela, take any name, they all believe in this. However, Marxism is also sounds right when we talk about prevailing inequalities. Inequalities are prevailing, no doubt about it. If you see that in 21st century, we are witnessing far more inequalities what you can even anticipate. What you can anticipate. India की अगर मैं बात करूं, current status is 1% of the population holds 23% of the wealth. 1% population के पास 23% of the wealth है. And the top 5% of the population holds 60% of the wealth of India. This is IHDI report 2023. IHDI is an inequality adjusted HDI report. Gini coefficient of India is still hovering around 29. India is one of those countries having massive inequality. And not only that, everywhere, be it capitalist, be it socialist, everywhere we can say inequalities are increasing, are increasing. So that proves Marx right that more they are having control on forces of production. And this inequality is increasing because of globalization and automations. More automations, more technologies, and now the new gold is data. It's called datafication. So आज डेटा सबसे बड़ा गोल्ड है. अगर आपके पास डेटा है तो सब कुछ है. एंड आपको लग रहा होगा कि उनको एग्जैक्ट पता है कि मैं इतने बजे यहां आता हूं, माई मोबाइल इज माई स्पाई. दे कैन इजिली आइडेंटिफाई, ट्रायंगुलेट कर सकते हैं कि सुनील इस बजे से इस बजे तक यहां रहता है और यहीं पे ड्रोन लगा के, if they want. I'm not kidding. It's quite possible. They know where I am, what, even my eyelid, my, retina is on their database. It is on their database, isn't it? So that's the reason of Aadhaar controversies, if you know. So we all are being sold, let's say this way. And I don't know, शायद यही वजह थी कि स्पेशल ऑप्स को शायद रोका गया होगा. 11 को शायद रिलीज होना था, 18 को हुआ. I am guessing, I'm not sure, but शायद वो मेगासिस नाम was the issue. उसको बदला गया होगा, शायद ओरिजिनल में नाम ओरिजिनल दिया गया होगा. There was one controversy coming from a malware from Israel. I'm sure you're aware of that controversy, Pegasus. We all are being sold. आपको लग रहा है आपको आपका फोन बड़ा सेफ है. You just give me your phone for 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Just कुछ चीजें स्कैन करनी है. And your phone is mine. Cloning is the easiest possible thing now. आपको लग रहा है आपका WhatsApp end-to-end encryption है. हाँ, be happy. Be happy. Datafication is the new thing. And it's far more horrible than what it looks like. So ये सब हो रहा है. And that's what Norman call it. Norman is the man who uses the term datafication. The data is the new capital, and those who control data, they control everything. They control everything. बहुत सारी चीजें हैं बॉस. अभी आई डोंट नो वेदर आई एम नोइंग इट और नॉट, एक बड़े केस में एलन मस्क का सैटेलाइट वो हैज बीन यूज्ड. ये तो अब शुरुआत है पहली. When private satellites has been used for some kind of manipulations somewhere. So these all things are what? ये सब न्यूज़पेपर में आता. Just connect the dots a bit and you will see. Oh, अगर आपकी याददाश्त तीस और चीज़ों से जोड़ सकते हैं तो you will surprise. अच्छा, ये बात यहाँ जाके जुड़ी. So this is how, and yes, that's how the data, that आपकी location, app, everything. So if you see this way, what is happening? Automation, technology, they are the sources why these inequalities are prevailing this much. And that's how we are into what is called, even alienation is very high because of these things only. The sense of fear is there all the time. Sense of fear is there. So this way, you can say that Marxism still sounds right. Marxism notion of conventional class conflict sounds a bit weird. कि ऐसा कभी होगा कि साथ में आके वो bloodshed करेंगे. But yes, inequalities are prevailing. Historical materialism is valid. And even what he talked about, we had some hints here and there. Ki yes, class struggle may take place. Recent example is Sri Lanka itself. What happened in Sri Lanka when they, in a way charged upon President House. If you're knowing what happened in Sri Lanka, people went up to the President House. Is saying that Marxism is not completely irrelevant. In Indian context, in Asian context, what seems कि a different praxis is used. अब ये सब आपको use करना चाहिए term. In Indian context, in Asian context, a different praxis is used. And rather than having what is called class struggle, we chose the path of social movement, peaceful retaliations. So these kind of things are what Gandhi did. Marx का ही concept use किया, but he chose what? Civil disobedience. He was more inspired, remember, from American Renaissance. If you could recall, in American Renaissance, I talked about that how. Yes, very good. So that's no, that means you're revising the things. So in American Renaissance, as we got this idea of civil disobedience, that is something which inspired him more. He mixed the things. So in the praxis has been used in different way. So what Nelson Mandela did, Nelson Mandela's, 2 days back we had Nelson Mandela's days. What is speciality of Nelson Mandela's policy? What is that called? Anyone? Non-violence. तो इनफैक्ट ये गांधी का सबसे बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन था. Before Gandhi, nobody thought कि with the non-violence country could be freed. And after Gandhi, every country tries that way. So even Nelson Mandela made nation with the help of sports. And he also believed the same way कि civil resistance is a better way. Civil resistance is a better way, and let's stay together. What has happened, let's forget the past. Let's forget the past. Let's forgive the past. ऐसा मेल्डन ने कहा नहीं, but meaning वही था. Let's forgive the past, and यहाँ से let's start new. So praxis was in a different way. ये line, अगर सिर्फ ये एक line भी आप लिखते हो, तो the copy checker will get a fair hint कि you are not just only after flowery languages. You understand the concept. So Marxian concept when travel to India, they use praxis in a different way. So social movement, peasantry movement, recently what we got peasantry movement and all these kind of things, they are those people who are following the Marxian notion, but using the praxis in a different way, except Naxalbari. Naxalism followed the same approach of class struggle, but rest of them followed what is called more democratic and you can say alternative approach, that yes, class 4 itself can come together, but not necessarily always through violent means. There could be civil disobedience, there could be social movements and such like things. So despite all these things, Marxism still exists. But the UNDP report says India is the 4th most equal country. No, for consumption. तो पूरी बात बोलो भाई. अरे अर्थ का, that's what the point is. It's why, because the higher the gap between rich and poor, consumption pattern will be less or more same among the poorers. That's the reason why 4th equal. So ऐसा नहीं है कि it's that way. So 4th equal, when we are saying, you need to understand why it is. जहाँ कुछ ही लोग अमीर और बाकी सब गरीब है, तो उनका consumption pattern तो equal रहेगा ही फिर. So this way, when it comes to this idea, when it comes to India is one of those countries with very high Gini coefficient. So this way we got this idea of how Marxism is still relevant, especially in terms of what? That how inequalities are prevailing, how we got more automation and technology and resulting into what is called unemployment and jobless growth and these kind of things. But we are using different praxis. एक चीज आप और भी जोड़ सकते हो where Marxism seems relevant, that it has been proven now that we have done enough of environmental damage in the process of controlling nature. आज हम climate change पे कहाँ खड़े हैं? If you see where we are in climate change, where it seems that now we have a depressive picture. Weiss call it crisis of modernity. हमने क्लाइमेट के साथ जितना खराब कर लिया है, अब यहाँ से चीजें सुधरेंगी ऐसा लगता नहीं है. So this way we got, when we talk about even environmentalism, which Marx has talked about, it's why, because there is consumerism, there is massive notion of surplus. अगर वो नहीं होता तो शायद environmental degradation भी इतना नहीं होता. That's how you can say that how Marxism is still relevant in 21st century. So this was about Marx and the dimensions and so. Now, it will take 2-3 minutes. Let's write it quickly, and so that we are done with this chapter, and then we'll move to the next thinker, Durkheim. So you can give a quick heading: Marxism in 21st century. In fact, political leaders are becoming the new capitalists. That's how it is. Not only favoring, political leaders are the new capitalists. नहीं, crony socialism भी है. Crony capitalism is something which doesn't make sense. हो सकता है किसी ने बोला हो, I'm not denying this, but it's a crony socialism which makes relevance. Then वो टर्म है, आई एग्री, लेकिन इट्स अ crony socialism which is more significant here when we talk about this idea. Then you can say that Marxism in 21st century. Marxism in 21st century. क्रोनी का सिंपल मतलब होता है व्हेन यू आर सीकिंग प्रॉफिट. तो अगर अगर कहीं किसी ने क्रोनी कैपिटलिज्म बोला होगा तो ही माइट बी क्रिटिसाइजिंग दैट लिबरल अप्रोच ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म, जो हम मानते हैं कि कैपिटलिज्म इज फॉर द गुड ऑफ एवरीवन. कैपिटलिज्म इफ इज फॉर लेजर फेयर ओनली, फॉर देयर प्रॉफिट ओनली, नॉट फॉर गुड ऑफ एवरीवन, नॉट बिलीविंग इन रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, उस केस में आप उसको क्रोनी कैपिटलिज्म बोल सकते हो. बट आई हैव टू सी द एंटायर स्टेटमेंट इन विच कॉन्टेक्स्ट द टर्म इज यूज्ड. सो कैपिटलिज्म भी बोला जा सकता है, बट कंटेक्स्ट वहां होगा. क्रोनी इज व्हेन इट इज self motivated of profit. That's how the term is used. Now you can write that Marxism in 21st century. In 21st century, although appears like trump of capitalism, appears like trump of ट्रम्प नहीं बोल रहा हूं मैं, ट्रम्प ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म. वैसे वो भी सही था, ट्रम्प ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म, नो, ट्रम्प ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म, एंड मार्क्सिज्म सीम्स politically bankrupt. Marxism seems politically bankrupt. कुछ ज्यादा promises कर दी, इतना नहीं करना चाहिए था. That's why Marxism seems politically bankrupt. Yet it is found relevant. It is found relevant in following ways. तो मान के चल रहे हैं कि लगभग मार्क्सिज्म का वो टोन खत्म हो गया, बट स्टिल रिलेवेंट इन फॉलोइंग वेज. फर्स्ट, you can say increasing inequalities and issues arising out of it. Increasing inequalities and issues arising out of it. Globally, हाँ इसी में थोड़ा सा, इसी में globally, इसी में आगे globally, after promotion of liberalism, and privatization, the inequalities have increased manyfold. कम से कम before 1991 this was not the case. Inequalities has increased manyfold. Inequalities have increased manyfold. For instance, in India itself, top 1% holds almost 22.6% of wealth. Almost 22.6% of wealth. ये IHDI की रिपोर्ट है, UNDP रिपोर्ट. हाँ, ऑक्सफैम का अलग है, ऑक्सफैम पावर्टी वो अलग है, उनका डेटाबेस अलग है. So that's our 22.6. जो सबसे ज्यादा accepted होता, that is UNDP. So in UNDP we have IHDI report that talks about it. And top 5%, this is even more horrible, and top 5% hold 60% of wealth. 60% of wealth. हाँ, ऑक्सफैम नहीं, ऑक्सफैम इज पॉपुलर. अब ऑक्सफैम है, CMI है, आप उसको कोट कर सकते हो. दे आर नॉट जस्ट टॉम डिक एंड हैरी इंस्टीट्यूशंस, है ना। इससे मतलब नहीं कि वैसे तो प्राइवेट फेडरल रिजर्व भी है, उसे क्या करेंगे फिर? यू नो, यूएस फेडरल रिजर्व इज प्राइवेट, इट इज नॉट ओन्ड बाय गवर्नमेंट। ऐसा नहीं है, वो डिपेंड करता है उनकी पॉपुलैरिटी पे, उनकी एक्सेप्टेंस। नहीं नहीं, वो दैट्स अ वे टू लुक एट, बिल्कुल आई एग्री, दैट इज अ वे टू लुक एट, वो एक वेंटेज पॉइंट हो सकता है। अगेन व्हेन समवन इज सेइंग एनीथिंग, डोंट एक्सेप्ट इट एज ए सेल्फ एविडेंट ट्रुथ। किसी ने अगर आपसे कहा कि ऑक्सफैम रिपोर्ट यूरोसेंट्रिक है या यूएस सेंट्रिक है, एक्सेप्ट इट, बट डोंट एक्सेप्ट इट एज सेल्फ एविडेंट ट्रुथ। वो एक वेंटेज पॉइंट है, वो उनका अपना एक तरीका है चीजों को बोलने का, ऐसा जरूरी है, हमेशा जरूरी नहीं है। वो डिपेंड करता है कि आप सैंपल साइज कहाँ यूज कर रहे हो, और इसीलिए तो हमेशा, अब इसे ग्लोबल हंगर रिपोर्ट ही है, अब आपके ऊपर है, आप चाहो मानो ना मानो, क्योंकि जाहिर सी बात है वो फोन पे पूछते हैं और दे हैव देयर ओन डेफिनेशन। कुछ चीजें रिसर्च में प्रॉब्लमेटिक होती हैं, उस पर यहाँ नहीं जा रहे भी, बिकॉज आज मैं चाह रहा हूँ कि इसको खत्म कर ले पहले, है नो। सो नहीं तो फिर विल बी डिविएटेड। नाउ यू कैन क्विकली राइट दैट, क्या लिखा हमने? ऑलराइट, नाउ नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज the promotion of automation and technology, the promotion of automation and technology, the promotion of automation and technology, automations and technology are reducing life chances, are reducing life chances and reducing life chances in terms of employability, in terms of employability। एलन मस्क तो कहने काम करने की जरूरत भी नहीं पड़ेगी फ्यूचर में, in terms of employability, employability resulting in more dependence on state, more dependence on state। उसी वजह से तो ऐसा हो रहा है कि वो आपको यूज कर रहे हैं एज ए वोट बैंक। मोर डिपेंडेंस तो आप खाने के लिए साहब, नो, अब देखो पॉलिटिशियंस क्या, आपको खाना फ्री कर देंगे, ये फ्री कर देंगे, बिजली फ्री कर देंगे, बिकॉज यू नो यूर, दे नो यूर डिपेंडेंट अपॉन। जबकि अगर कोई यही कोई अगर आप रिच होते तो आपको कहा जाता कि अगर मैं आपको बोलूं आप बहुत रिच है कि आपके घर की 150 यूनिट फ्री कर दूंगा, तब तो उल्टा वो नाराज हो जाओगे, आपको अगर ले जाओ मुझसे पैसे, योर ईगो विल बी हर्ट। लेकिन वहां पे दैट इज द पॉलिटिकल एजेंडा, बिकॉज दिस इज व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट। हमारे वी आर गेटिंग मोर डिपेंडेंट ऑन द स्टेट, वी आर गेटिंग मोर डिपेंडेंट ऑन द स्टेट एवरीवेयर, हर जगह पे स्टेट पे डिपेंडेंस बढ़ी है because of all these things। Then that's another thing which, you know, this automation is resulting in datafication of society, datafication of society, says Norman. Norman is the man who gave this idea, datafication of the society, says Norman, 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 where data is the new capital, says Norman, where data is the new capital। अभी मैं गूगल को फोन करूं कि मुझे ये बताइए इस समय कनॉट प्लेस में कितने बच्चे यूपीएससी की तैयारी कर रहे हैं, दे विल ऑपरेट देयर सर्च इंजन। क्या करेंगे, कितने ऐसे लोग हैं इस समय कनॉट प्लेस में जिनके मोबाइल में ये ऐप है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया ऐप, ये करंट अफेयर ऐप, वो ऐप, ये ऐप, क्योंकि ये ऐप डाउनलोड कौन करेगा? आपको लग रहा है दीज एप्स आर फ्री फॉर यू, यू आर फ्री सो इंटरनेट इज यूजिंग यू। आपको लग रहा है इंटरनेट फ्री, दीज एप्स आर फ्री, नो, यू आर फ्री एंड दे आर यूजिंग यू। तो मैं भी सर्च करूंगा कनॉट प्लेस पे, गूगल अपना सर्च इंजन स्टार्ट करेगा कि कितने ऐसे मोबाइल डिवाइसेस इस समय कनॉट प्लेस में हैं जिनमें ये ऐप हैं, फिर उनका कॉन्टेक्ट नंबर वो यहाँ अवेलेबल है क्या, क्योंकि फेयर द चांसेस एज ग्रुप का, एज आपने बताया रखा है, किसी ने किसी ऐप पे बता ही दिया होगा एज कौन सा है। कुछ खास ऐप भी हैं जो आपको आपका एज से ही कहानी शुरू करते हैं। आई एम नॉट किडिंग, मैं वैसे फिटनेस ऐप की बात कर रहा था। सो वो जो है एज से ही कहानी शुरू करते हैं। अब इसके बाद क्या है, मुझे पूरा आइडिया मिल गया, गूगल विल गिव सेंड मी द नंबर कि लगभग इतने लोग हैं. I will transfer the money and I'll get you the numbers and you'll get a message, hey, you are in CP, let's have a chit chat on UPSC preparation. This all will happen with the blink of eye. Data is the new capital. आप सोचो गूगल पे क्या क्या लोग सर्च नहीं करते. After demonetization, within 24 hours, 75,000 people searched how to convert black money in white. आपको लग रहा है सीबीडीटी के पास डेटा है? अब सीबीडीटी कभी भी चाहे गूगल से डेटा ले सकती है. इस 75 में अगर 10% का भी टर्न आउट हो गया तो जो डेटा गूगल को पे किया होगा उतना तो निकल आएगा. Who are these people who got this much of an access कि गूगल से पूछ रहे? Next time be careful, आप गूगल से क्या क्या पूछ रहे हो, that all is going to store. And your question is data for someone else. That's how it works. So be careful. We are into that zone. अब इसको whether you like or dislike. Whether you like or dislike. So that's how. So this is how we got. और अगर आपको लग रहा है कि कुछ मैल वायरसेस सिर्फ इतना ही, कहानी उससे बहुत बड़ी है. सो ट्रोजन वोजन बहुत छोटी चीज है अब तो. So when it comes to this idea, when we say how datafication is something, data is the new capital, and those who are controlling it, they are controlling the entire automation, they are controlling the entire. Acha, do you know which one was the first cyber attack on this earth? किसी को आइडिया है पहला साइबर अटैक किस देश ने किया था, कहां पे? और उसने एक ऐसा रास्ता बता दिया which is so dangerous now because you know it has been used in this series also. तो इसका मतलब कहीं ना कहीं रेफरेंस में तो है लोगों के. अब the first cyber attack ever was done by Israel on Iran. That's called Stuxnet. I think year was 2008 or 9. You can cross check it. Stuxnet, where they had switched off the cooling of nuclear plant of Iran. और उसके प्रोपेलर की स्पीड बढ़ा दी थी. And when this series was using this concept, I was a bit surprised. Look, data कहाँ use हो सकता है. Now you're using in your story though. ऐसा तो बहुत सारे टेररिस्ट ग्रुप के पास ऑप्शन है फिर कि यस कूलिंग ऑफ द न्यूक्लियर प्लांट्स और द प्रोपेलर स्पीड कैन बी इंक्रीज्ड एंड देन कुछ करने की भी जरूरत नहीं, सिटिंग फार अवे यू कैन डिस्ट्रॉय द होल थिंग. सो दीज थिंग्स आर टेलिंग कि डेटा इज द न्यू कैपिटल. हु कंट्रोल्स इट? और डेटा में दोनों डेटा, झूठ भी और सच भी, दोनों ही बिकता है. दैट्स हाउ इट इज. So considering all these things, Norman said, it's a wonderful article, he wrote a paper on it, it's called Datafication, that how datafication, so capitalism, it seems capitalism has come into a new avatar altogether. Now, next is, you can write that. Marxism or Marxist explanation on environment seems valid. Marxist explanations on environment seems valid in modern times. Seems valid in modern times. In modern times. Where climate change itself is a business. Itself is a business. ये अच्छा, पहले पेड़ काट दो उसके बाद कार्बन क्रेडिट की बात करो, isn't it? So that's how climate change itself is a business now in different way. So this is how again farce. Now you know this is a potential business. And people are working on it, how to have this business. So that's how Marxism is valid. हाँ, सीधे उस तरह से नहीं. Next, the last one. Even the Marxist idea of class struggle, got a new praxis. In Asia, particularly in India. Asia, particularly in India, where new ideas of social movement, civil disobedience, etc., were used for making class for itself. Making sense? Class for itself. According to O.P. Gaba, anyone from political science might be knowing this name. According to O.P. Gaba, the Gandhian idea of nationalism is having economic infrastructure as its base. But using in a new praxis or new approach of nationalism. In fact, Shashi Tharoor, I sometimes wonder कि he's actually well-read man. I might have quoted, he said this line, very good line, कि Gandhi has brought us together by saying कि our potatoes are being taken away. So he said, उससे पहले we were fighting differently, but he said, so reasons, Gandhi also chose the economic reason only as a base, but gave, instead of class struggle, he believed into what? The idea of nationalism. So जितने भी आज के टाइम में सोशल मूवमेंट वगैरह जो है, वो गंधियन जितने भी मूवमेंट दिख रहे हैं, आप इन्वायरमेंट मूवमेंट देख लो, फेमिनिस्ट मूवमेंट देख लो, ये सब क्या है? मार्क्सिस्ट नोशन को यूज कर रहे हैं इन अ न्यू प्रैक्टिस, इन अ न्यू वे, इन अ न्यू अवतार. सो दैट्स व्हाई मार्क्सिज्म इज स्टिल रिलेवेंट. एक और बात भी है जो कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं कि जो ह्यूमनिस्ट मार्क्सिज्म है वो आजकल ज्यादा यूज हो रहा है, like the idea of alienation, the idea of subjugation, unemployment, and that instead of this class struggle part. So historical materialism and alienation is used more, right? Last, but not the, you can write that. हाँ बस 2 minute और खत्म. You can write the last one. अच्छा, oh, quickly the last one, that finally it can be said that Marxist explanations might be oversimplistic. Yet his approach of historical materialism, alienation, etc., became very significant in 21st century. अब इसको एलोबरेट कर सकते हो आप जरूरत पड़ने पर. became very significant in 21st century. So this was about Karl Marx. With this, E.M. Sri Satyanarayan Katham Prathamodhyaya Samapt. So now the second one is Immanuel Durkheim. Just the mirror opposite. He found religion good. He found system is functioning. He found, how. So he is one who is structural functionalist. What he had said, what about Emile Durkheim and his contribution because it's formal one. Marx में दिक्कत ये थी कि Marx was mumbo jumbo here and there. He's more organized. So what is Emile Durkheim's contribution and others? That we'll do in the next class. I hope the class was productive for you. And please, I request you all कि आज घर जाके एक बार मार्क्स के सारे क्वेश्चन देखिएगा. And more than 95% of the questions you should be comfortable. If not, do let me know what's going wrong where. Thank you.